It was May 1987, Mountain View Studios tucked away in Montreux, Switzerland, overlooking Lake Geneva. Most people thought Freddie Mercury was on vacation, resting, taking a break from the relentless pressure of being a rock god. They were wrong. What happened in those 5 days would change music history forever. But the story that unfolded behind those studio doors, that's something the world never fully understood. Until now. The studio engineer, a 28-year-old Swiss technician named Stefan Richter, arrived at 6 a.m. on May 11th, expecting a normal day. Instead, he found Freddie Mercury already inside, sitting at the piano in complete darkness, playing the same chord progression over and over again. "Stefan," Freddie said without turning around, his voice quiet but intense. "Close the door. Lock it. For the next 5 days. This studio doesn't exist to the outside world." Stefan stood frozen. "Mr. Mercury, I don't understand." "You will." Freddie finally turned to face him. Even in the dim light, Stefan could see something different in Freddie's eyes. Not the flamboyant showman, not the confident performer. This was something raw, something desperate. "I need to record something," Freddie continued. "Something that matters, and I have exactly 5 days to do it." Stefan would later recall that moment with chills. He looked like a man racing against time itself. What Stefan didn't know, what nobody knew except Freddie, was the real reason for this marathon session. 3 weeks earlier, Freddie had received news that would shatter most people completely. News he couldn't share with anyone yet. News that meant every second, every note, every breath now carried unbearable weight. He was dying. Freddie Mercury wasn't supposed to be in Switzerland at all. Queen had just wrapped their Magic Tour, and the band members had scattered to rest and recover. Brian May was with his family in London. Roger Taylor was planning a solo project. John Deacon had disappeared into domestic life. But Freddie couldn't rest. He'd never been able to. Born Farrokh Bulsara in Zanzibar, raised in India, reinvented in London, Freddie had spent his entire life transforming himself, creating personas, building walls, the flamboyant stage presence, the outrageous costumes, the larger-than-life personality. All of it was armor. But now, in May 1987, that armor was cracking. Stefan began setting up the recording equipment, still confused about what exactly they were doing. "What are we recording, Mr. Mercury? An album? Demos?" Freddie stood up from the piano and walked to the window overlooking the lake. The Swiss Alps rose majestically in the distance, their peaks still covered in snow despite the spring warmth. "I'm recording my life," Freddie said simply. "Every moment I should have lived, but didn't. Every word I should have said, but couldn't. Every person I should have thanked, but was too afraid to." The weight of those words hung in the air like smoke. Stefan didn't press further. He'd worked with enough artists to know when to stay quiet. Over the next hour, Freddie transformed the studio into something that looked more like a sanctuary than a recording space. He brought in photographs, not of concerts or award shows, but personal ones. His parents, his sister Kashmira, his cats, friends whose names Stefan didn't recognize. "Music isn't about perfection," Freddie said, arranging the photos carefully on the piano. "It's about truth. And for 5 days, I'm going to tell the truth about everything I've spent my life hiding." Hey, before we continue with this incredible story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube has removed their subscriptions without notice. Just take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any of the exclusive content that's coming up. And while you're there, leave that powerful like that helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who is part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. The first song Freddie recorded wasn't a Queen song. It wasn't even a rock song. It was a lullaby his mother used to sing to him in Gujarati, a language he rarely spoke anymore, a connection to a past he'd deliberately left behind when he became Freddie Mercury. Stefan watched through the control room glass as Freddie sat at the piano, tears streaming down his face, singing words that the engineer couldn't understand but could feel in every fiber of his being. When the take finished, Freddie sat in silence for a full 3 minutes. Then he pressed the intercom button. Play it back. As the recording filled the studio, Freddie closed his eyes. Stefan noticed his lips moving, whispering something. Later, he would learn that Freddie was apologizing to his parents for being the son they never quite understood, for loving men when they'd hoped for grandchildren, for choosing music over tradition, for becoming someone they couldn't fully embrace. Again, Freddie said, we do it again until it's perfect. They recorded that lullaby 17 times, each take more emotionally devastating than the last. By hour 6 of day 1, Stefan was exhausted just from witnessing the raw emotion pouring out of this man he'd only known as a rock legend. But Freddie was just getting started. Stefan, I need you to understand something, Freddie said during a rare break. Everything I'm recording this week, it's not for release. It's not for the charts. It's not even for Queen. Then who is it for? Freddie lit a cigarette, his hands trembling slightly. For everyone I've loved and lost. For everyone who will remember me when I'm gone. And for myself, the parts of myself I've spent 40 years trying to kill. The confession hit Stefan like a physical blow. Mr. Mercury, are you okay? Freddie smiled, but it was the saddest smile Stefan had ever seen. No, darling, I'm not. But for 5 days, I'm going to pretend that music can save me, because it's the only thing that ever has. That night, Freddie recorded 4 more songs, each one a piece of his soul he'd never shared before. Songs about loving someone you can never have. Songs about hiding who you really are. Songs about the price of fame and the cost of secrets. When Stefan finally left the studio at 2 a.m., Freddie was still there, playing piano in the darkness, singing to himself like a man praying for redemption. Stefan arrived at 6 a.m. on day 2 to find Freddie hadn't left. He'd slept on the studio couch for maybe 2 hours, judging by the rumpled blanket and the cold coffee cups scattered around the room. Good morning, sunshine, Freddie said with forced cheerfulness. But his voice was hoarse, strained from 12 hours of singing. Mr. Mercury, you need to rest. I'll rest when I'm dead, darling. The words came out sharper than intended. Freddie softened. I'm sorry. I can't waste time sleeping when there's so much left to say. Day 2 was when things got darker. Freddie began recording songs about loss, real loss, specific loss. He sang about a lover who died of a disease that had no name yet in 1987, but everyone in certain communities knew about. He sang about friends disappearing from his life, not because they wanted to, but because their bodies gave up. He sang about fear, the kind of fear that wakes you up at 3 a.m., gasping for air, wondering if today is the day your own body betrays you. Stefan had to leave the control room twice to compose himself. The songs were too personal, too raw, too real. Around 3 p.m., something shifted in Freddie. He became angry. He pounded the piano keys with a fury Stefan had never witnessed. He screamed lyrics about injustice, about a world that turned its back on people like him, about a society that celebrated his music but condemned his love. One song in particular, Stefan later called it The Rage, was so intense that the engineer worried Freddie might hurt himself. He was slamming his fists on the keys, his voice cracking with emotion and physical strain. When it ended, Freddie collapsed onto the piano bench, sobbing. Stefan rushed into the studio. Mr. Mercury, Freddie, please, you need to stop. I can't stop, Freddie shouted, looking up with red, swollen eyes. "Don't you understand? This is all I have left. These 5 days, these songs. This is my legacy." Not the stadiums, not the millions. This, the truth. He grabbed Stefan's shoulders. "Promise me something. Promise me that no matter what happens, these recordings survive. Promise me that someday, when people are ready, they'll hear who I really was." Stefan, tears now streaming down his own face, nodded. "I promise." That promise would haunt him for decades. Day 3 almost didn't happen. Stefan arrived to find the studio door still locked from the inside. He knocked. No answer. He knocked harder. Nothing. Panic set in. He grabbed the master key and burst through the door. Freddie was on the floor, surrounded by scattered photographs, empty wine bottles, and crumpled papers covered in lyrics. "Jesus Christ, Freddie." Stefan rushed to him, checking for a pulse. Freddie's eyes fluttered open. "Still alive, darling?" Disappointed? "This isn't funny." "I know it's not funny." Freddie sat up slowly, looking like he'd aged 10 years overnight. "I spent the night trying to decide if I should finish this. If any of it matters. If anyone will care." Stefan helped him to his feet. "It matters. You matter." Freddie studied the young engineer's face for a long moment. Then something changed. A resolve hardened in his eyes. "You're right. Today, we record the one song I've been avoiding." "Which one?" "The Goodbye." What followed was the most haunting recording session Stefan would ever witness in his 40-year career. Freddie sat at the piano and improvised a song. No written lyrics, no planned melody, just pure emotion flowing through him. He sang to his mother. He sang to his father. He sang to his sister. He sang to lovers past and present. He sang to Brian, Roger, and John, his brothers in every way that mattered. He sang about regret, about things left unsaid, about moments missed, about love unexpressed. The recording lasted 14 minutes. Freddie never stopped once. His voice ranged from a whisper to a wail, from gentle tenderness to devastating anguish. When it ended, both men sat in complete silence for nearly 20 minutes. Finally, Stefan spoke. "I don't have words." Freddie wiped his eyes. "Neither do I, which is why I had to sing it." But something else happened on day 3. Something that would change everything. At 8 p.m., Freddie's phone rang. It was his doctor from London. Stefan couldn't hear the conversation, but he watched Freddie's face transform from cautious optimism to crushing devastation. When Freddie hung up, he turned to Stefan with eyes that held no more tears. He'd cried them all out. "The test results came back," Freddie said quietly. "It's confirmed. I have maybe 2 years, maybe less." Stefan felt the world tilt. "Freddie, Don't. Please don't say you're sorry. Everyone's going to be sorry soon enough. Right now, I need you to help me finish this. 2 more days. Can you do that?" "Of course. Anything." Freddie nodded. "Then let's record something beautiful. Something that proves I was here, that I lived, that I loved, that I mattered beyond the music." That night they recorded the most beautiful melody Stefan had ever heard. A piano piece with no lyrics, just pure emotion translated into notes. Freddie called it the in-between, explaining that it represented the space between who we are and who we wish we could be. Something shifted in Freddie overnight. Stefan arrived on day 4 to find him energized, focused, almost manic in his creativity. "Today, we celebrate," Freddie announced. "No more sadness. No more regrets. Today, we record joy." And he did. He recorded songs about his cats. Yes, his beloved cats. With such affection and humor that Stefan found himself laughing despite everything. He recorded a duet with himself, playing both parts, about an impossible love affair between 2 people who could never exist in the same timeline. He recorded an upbeat, almost disco-like track about dancing at the end of the world, living like there's no tomorrow, because for some people, there isn't. This is what people don't understand, Freddie explained between takes. Tragedy and joy aren't opposites. They're dance partners. You can't appreciate one without the other. Around midday, Freddie did something unexpected. He called Brian May. Stefan heard only one side of the conversation, but it was clear that Freddie was saying goodbye without actually saying goodbye. He thanked Brian for the music, for the friendship, for understanding him better than almost anyone. When he hung up, Freddie was crying again, but this time they were different tears, grateful tears. "I never told him I love him," Freddie said. "Not in those words. We British are terrible at that, you know? But I just did." And he said it back. Day 4 became about reconciliation. Freddie recorded personal messages to people, not songs, just spoken words. Apologies, thank yous, I love yous. Messages he intended to send after he was gone. Stefan preserved every word, knowing that these recordings were more precious than any platinum album. As evening approached, Freddie recorded one final song for Day 4, a cover of a classical piece his father used to play. He dedicated it to both his parents, hoping they would understand that despite everything, despite all the ways he disappointed them, he'd never stopped being their son. "Do you think they'll forgive me?" Freddie asked Stefan as the final notes faded. "There's nothing to forgive. You didn't know my family. Traditional, conservative. I was supposed to be different than I turned out to be." Stefan leaned forward. "Freddie, you turned out to be exactly who you were supposed to be. The world needed Freddie Mercury. Your parents may not have understood, but history will." Those words seemed to bring Freddie peace. He smiled, a real smile, not the performer's mask. "One more day," he said. "Tomorrow, we finish this. Tomorrow, I record the one song that explains everything." May 15th, 1987. The final day. Stefan arrived to find Freddie already dressed, not in his usual casual studio clothes, but in an elegant black suit, perfectly tailored, as if he was preparing for something monumentally important. "Today is different," Freddie announced. "Today, everything we've done this week comes together into one final piece. Are you ready?" Stefan nodded, though he had no idea what Freddie meant. What happened next defied explanation. Freddie had Stefan set up microphones throughout the entire studio, not just in the recording booth, but everywhere. By the windows, near the photographs, by the piano, in the corners. "I want to capture everything," Freddie explained. "Not just the music, the room, the moment, the feeling of being alive right now in this exact second." Then he began to sing. It wasn't a traditional song. It was more like a conversation with the universe. Freddie moved through the studio, singing different parts in different locations, his voice echoing off the walls, layering and building into something supernatural. He sang about being born in Zanzibar, about discovering music in India, about arriving in London with nothing but dreams, about forming Queen, about Live Aid, about stadiums filled with people singing his words back to him. But he also sang about loneliness, about loving people who couldn't love him back, not because they didn't want to, but because society wouldn't allow it. About watching friends die while the world pretended not to notice. About carrying secrets so heavy they bent your spine. And then, in the final section, Freddie sang about hope. Hope that his music would outlive his body. Hope that someday people like him wouldn't have to hide. Hope that love, all kinds of love, would be celebrated instead of condemned. Hope that his life, for all its complications and contradictions, would mean something. The recording lasted 27 minutes. When it ended, Freddie stood in the center of the studio, arms spread wide, face tilted toward the ceiling, tears running down his cheeks. "It's done," he whispered. "It's finally done." Stefan played back the entire recording, What they heard was indescribable. Not just a song, but a human soul captured in sound. Every emotion Freddie had suppressed for 40 years, released in one transcendent piece of art. When it finished, Freddie turned to Stefan. "This is what I needed you to understand. These 5 days weren't about recording an album. They were about leaving proof that I existed, that I felt deeply, that I loved completely, that I was human." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "When I'm gone, and I will be gone sooner than anyone expects, I need you to protect these recordings. Not forever, but until the world is ready to hear them. Will you do that for me?" Stefan, completely overwhelmed, could only nod. Freddie pulled him into a tight embrace. "Thank you for these 5 days, for witnessing this, for not judging me, for just being here." They spent the final hour carefully cataloging every recording, every take, every spoken word. Freddie wrote detailed notes about each piece, when it should be released, who should hear it first, what each song meant. As the sun set over Lake Geneva, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and purples, Freddie stood by the window one last time. "You know what the saddest part is?" he said quietly. "I spent my whole life performing for others, creating characters, playing roles. And in these 5 days, I finally discovered who I really was, just as it's too late to do anything about it." "It's not too late," Stefan insisted. "You still have time." "Time for what? To come out? To tell the world I'm dying? To watch them dissect every choice I made?" Freddie shook his head. "No, this way is better. Let them remember the performer, the legend. These recordings, they're for the people who want to know the man." As Freddie prepared to leave, he placed one hand on the studio's main console. "5 days," he said. "In my entire career, these were the 5 days that mattered most. Not Live Aid, not the hits, not the fame. These 5 days when I finally told the truth." He turned to Stefan one last time. "The world will forget a lot about me, but these recordings, they'll make sure that the parts that mattered most don't disappear. Promise me you'll protect them until it's time." "I promise. But Freddie, when will it be time?" Freddie smiled that enigmatic smile that had captivated millions. "You'll know. The world will tell you when it's ready to hear the truth. It might be 5 years. It might be 50. But when that moment comes, you'll feel it." He walked to the door, then paused. "And Stefan, thank you for giving me 5 days to be human. That's a gift more precious than any crown." Freddie Mercury left Mountain View Studios that evening and never returned. 4 years later, on November 24, 1991, Freddie Mercury died at his London home. The world mourned the loss of one of music's greatest performers. But Stefan Richter carried a secret. In a temperature-controlled vault in Switzerland, protected by legal documents and Freddie's explicit instructions, sat recordings that would reveal the man behind the legend. Stefan kept his promise. He waited, he protected, he preserved. And somewhere, in those recorded words and melodies, Freddie Mercury's truth waits patiently for the moment when the world is finally ready to hear it. Because some legacies aren't built in stadiums filled with thousands. Some legacies are built in 5 quiet days in a Swiss recording studio, when a dying man decides to leave behind something more valuable than platinum records. He left behind his soul. If this incredible story of vulnerability, courage, and artistic truth moved you, make sure to subscribe and hit that thumbs up button. Share this with someone who needs to understand that our greatest work isn't always our most public work. Sometimes it's the truth we leave behind for those brave enough to find it. What would you record if you had 5 days to tell your truth? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to ring that notification bell for more untold stories about the legends who shaped music history, not through their fame, but through their humanity.